I fell in love with Mary from the dairy, but Mary wouldn't fall in love with me. Down by an old mill stream, we both sat down to dream. Little did she know that I was thinking of a scheme. My missus says she's going to divorce me. The moment that she does and I'm free. There's a pretty girl I know, I'll take her and I'll...
Hi, Neil Shawn here. Now thank you so much for joining me today as we take another look back at one of my favourite London theatres. So today I thought we'd have a look at one of the theatres that's always discussed amongst professionals. That is the famous Met Edgware Road. Now as you've just seen by this little bit of footage, it shows Edgware Road Tube. Now that's the tube that you would have disembarked from to go for a night at the Varieties. So join me as we recall some of the big stars that trod the boards here at the Met, and let's take a look at how the Met looks today, and it's a different kind of Met that's on its place. So this is the home of the Met today, the sadly now disused Paddington Green Police Station. And this police station of course became infamous itself because all of the criminals that they brought here at the height of course of all those notorious gangland murders, the craze, you name it, everybody stepped through these doors at some point. And the rumour is that when you're in the cells below this particular police station, you may just have heard of the voice of some of the music hall greats like Austin Rudd, who lived just round the corner over there. Or of course the brilliant and late great Mary Lloyd. She could be heard singing Take Me to the Church and all those other hits that she was famous for. What's more interesting though is this police station is now going to be demolished, which is ironic when you think, because way back in 1963 that's when they decided it was the end of the Met. The Metropolitan Theatre, affectionately known as the Met, once entertained London from 267 Edgware Road. Now it had long been a site of leisure and entertainment. Way back in 1524 there was the White Lion pub, which then made way for Turnham's Grand Concert Hall in 1836. Then in 1862 it was rebuilt again as the Metropolitan Music Hall. However, it really was in 1897 when it was remodelled to the designs of the famous theatre architect Frank Matcham that is the theatre that we know and love and remember today. But what the theatre needed was big stars, and there was none bigger in this particular period than Mr. Arthur Lloyd, who played the theatre in 1900 and was invited back in 1902. Two reasons really: he was a huge star and he could make money and fill the theatre. So the end came on Good Friday 1963. That was the final night of the much beloved Met. There was a big star show that night. It was hosted by some of the biggest names in variety. Tommy Trinder, Dickie Valentine, William Calvin even made an appearance. And then straight after that, well, more or less at least, the bulldozers moved in. And by September the 20th, there really wasn't much to see of this once glorious Frank Matcham Theatre. But lots and lots of big names that I've been lucky enough to interview over the years have told me about their experiences here at the Met. was the brilliant guitarist Hank Marvin. And way back in 1959, he appeared with Sir Cliff Richard here, and they were then called the Drifters. But as Hank recalled in a long interview with me, they were thrilled to get this particular date because, as he said, they'd only really appeared in small club-like venues. And now they were appearing in these colossal style theatres. Remember, this was around 2,000 seats. So for Hank, this really was the big time. Now here's a man that really needs no introduction. It's the wonderful and brilliant Mr. Johnny Hamp, who's given us so much great entertainment over the years. But way back in the mid-50s, Granada, who he worked for, applied and was granted the franchise to operate commercial television in the north of England. Now, studios were built in Manchester, however the Chelsea Palace was acquired to serve as a London studio, along with the wonderful Metropolitan on Edgware Road. Now, Johnny himself admitted to me when we had a chat that it was rather difficult to get acts into the theatre that could turn a profit. In fact, one of the only acts that could was, of course, the brilliant Mr. Max Miller. Now, even though he was getting about £1,000 a week, he could still turn a profit. But as Johnny revealed, it wasn't necessarily all through ticket sales, because he would saunter onto the stage, do his act, and then go back to the bar where lots and lots of people wanted to meet this great comedian and were more than willing to buy him and whoever was with him drinks, resulting in huge profits at the bar. Now, the ever-resourceful Mr. Johnny Hamp found another way in order to keep the Met going. Now, he teamed up with a gentleman called Mr. Paul Lincoln, and if that name's familiar, he was the man behind, of course, the infamous Two Eyes coffee bar in Old Compton Street that gave us the likes of Tommy Steele, Cliff Richard, etc. And what they decided to do was to present wrestling at the Met on a Saturday night. Now, this was so successful, according to Johnny, that the wrestling paid for the basic variety during the week. So really, we've a lot to thank Johnny for, not basically just for creating some of the best loved TV shows on TV, however, for keeping one of our wonderful theatres alive just that little bit longer. And for that, we're eternally grateful, Johnny.
Where's the band? In here? Must be a very small band. Are they all lying down? For the muck here. Are you... Got the screws in this leg. Are you in there?
Yes, we're here.
Are you there? Have you heard of My Way?
We've all heard about your way.
Oh, very uncalled for, isn't it? Well, if you've heard of My Way, what I think I'll do a couple of choruses of Love is a Many Splendid Thing, and the audience can be the judge. So if you like my voice, let me know about it, right? Well, take it away, Jack.
Now, lots of stars owed their very big break to appearing at the Met, and none other than one of my all-time favourite comedians, the late, great and brilliant Mr. Larry Grayson. Now, Larry told me that he appeared at the Met way back in 1957 and he was incredibly nervous. And of course, he decided not to call himself Billy Breen anymore, but now go under the guise of Larry Grayson, of which you can see here is Bill Matter says he's priceless. He certainly was. And Larry told me that he hoped by appearing at the Met that it would lead to him appearing at his all-time favourite theatre, the London Palladium. But as we know, it was a few years before that particular theatre beckoned. But for Larry, he said, the Met was an important part of his progression in the world of comedy. Now, another star that really carried on here at the Met, and there's a bit of a clue, is the wonderful Jim Dale. Now, I spent 4 hours with Jim in the #1 dressing room at the London Palladium, where he told me everything about his show business career and what a star he was and remains. Even today, he's still part of the franchise of Harry Potter, making lots and lots of their audio books. But way back in 1957, Jim Dale was a pop star, and all of his songs were produced by Sir George Martin. That's pre-Beatles.
Down the old fair lane with a heave and a hoe, and I just couldn't couldn't let her go. No, so get along. Oh, sweet little woman, get along. You better be on your way, you get along. Sweet little woman, get along. You better be on your way with the heat and the hoe. And I just couldn't let her go. No, well, the train had kept her rolling all night long. Yes, the train had kept her rolling all night long. Yes, the train had kept her rolling. Man, I said the train had kept her rolling all night long. Well, the train had kept her rolling all night long. And I still...
Now, Jim told me that when he came along to the Met, he was expecting, a few people to come along. He wasn't top of the bill, let me tell you. Top of the bill that day were the Vipers. And Jim, although his name was big, was lower down the bill. But also in the middle, there was an opportunity for you, yes, you, the great British public, to star here at the Met. There was a skiffle and jive competition. And what you had to do was go and collect a form in the heart of show business land in Leicester Square, fill it in, bring it here to the manager, did a bit of an audition backstage, and if he thought you were good enough, you too could appear on the stage with Jim. Jim told me though that he had a great affection for this theatre because he said it was a really big date. Lots and lots of people truly believed they'd made it when they got here. And he also told me that he felt that pop, rock and roll, whatever you want to call it, did prolong the life of a lot of these theatres because they filled theatres with teenagers who were willing to pay to see their idols in the flesh.
How can I be armoured there, eh? Not much money, good money, but you don't get much.
Good evening.
Few pints in your bus.
Is this it is wine?
You can have one yourself.
2 ales.
Have a fork.
2 ales. Get off my foot. 2 ales, missus. 2 jars of enough. 2 ales.
Now, these empty post boxes here were part of the Metropolitan Police here at Paddington Green, and as you would have come past a few years ago, you would have seen signs about how to stop criminals and all that sort of stuff. But a few years before that, well, around about 50 odd, you would have seen posters for some of the greats here at the Metropolitan. And one of my particular favourite stars, who was a huge success here, was the much lamented Mr. Frank Randle. Now, Frank didn't really have glorious success here in London. He was booked by Mr. Jack Hilton to appear at the Delphi Theatre. And what happened was he starred in this very first newfangled idea called Cine Variety. It didn't go well at all, but Frank was, as ever, being difficult and blamed some certain people, including the death of King George. Yeah. But a week later, he was booked here at the Metropolitan and simply packed the place. And he replicated that down the road at the Shepherd's Bush Empire and also across that way towards the Finsbury Park, proving that Northern humour really did translate. And Frank Randle did become a huge success here in London, despite what the critics might think. Every night he met lots and lots of his fans round the corner at the stage door, signed autographs, and then popped across there to the local pub to wet, well, some of the fans' whistles. But a lot of people do remember with Frank with great affection, and it's nice to know that even he could possibly be heard deep in the cells making a few jokes.
Each time we have a quarrel, it almost breaks my heart, 'cause I am so afraid that we will have to part. Each night I ask the stars up above, why must I be a teenager in love? One day I feel so happy, next day I feel so sad. I guess I learned to take the good.
Now, in November 1958, another huge rock and roll star came, some might say, to save the Met. And it is the brilliant Mr. Marty Wilde. Now, a lot of people talk about Tommy Steele, and rightly so. he also appeared here, and he was really and truly Britain's first rock and roll star. But Marty truly was the teen idol of the moment in November 1958, and he was also having a battle at that particular period with his infamous manager, Mr. Larry Parnes. He wanted out of the contract. Larry said there was another 4 years to go, and according to Marty, he would carry on with the dates that Larry had done, but after that he wanted to be a free spirit. Perhaps Marty was right, because at 80 he's still going strong and touring across the UK, singing those evergreen hits like Teenager in Love. But for Marty, he told me that, again, the Met was a very special place, because he said lots and lots of people came to see you, the big impresarios, the agents, the managers, and they would flood here on a Monday evening, the first house, to see whether you had star potential or not. Now, even though Marty at this point was a huge recording star, he was looking to branch out, and everybody knows in show business the only way to survive is to make sure you keep moving and try something new. And we now definitely know that Marty hit the jackpot in those stakes. So the end really came on September the 20th, and as you can see from this picture from the Arthur Lloyd website, sadly the theatre was demolished, and this is what we ended up with, a police station which is now going to be exclusive flats. But over here the real scenery doesn't change. That's because the tube remains the same, and that's where everybody would have come out from after a night at the Varieties and got back into the tube, or possibly popped in to the local pub next door. But if you really want to see how the Met looked in its prime in 1949, do take a look at a brilliant film called The Blue Lamp, which starred Jack Warner. That movie was a precursor to Dixon of Dock Green. It starred, of course, the heartthrob of the day, Dirk Bogarde. And here's another little bit of, cinema history for you. Just down this particular road here, Harrow Road, is where the Coliseum Cinema was, and that's also featured in the film. It's the one where Dirk Bogarde runs into, and there's a bit of a scene, shall we say. It's great that we've got these particular films on record showing just how wonderful these theatres and cinemas really looked. But for me, the Met will always have a special place in theatrical history. I'm Neil Shaw. I hope you've really enjoyed this short film, and do let me know by sharing it on Facebook and retweeting it on Twitter. Until next time, I'll see you soon.
She slipped and then she fell down by the wishing well, in the same place where I fell with Nellie Dean. Da da da.